In this video, we will be tasting and talking about batch 84 of the Ecochateas Club, a Red Jade number 18 Black Tea. Batch 84 of the Ecochateas Club is a Red Jade number 18 Black Tea. Red Jade is the English translation of the Chinese name that was given to this strain of tea. In Chinese, it's called Hong Yu, sometimes translated as ruby red. Number 18 is the registered number with the Tea Research and Extension Station, and they released or published this tea, so to speak, in 1999, after many years, actually decades of research and refinement of a pre-existing hybrid that is the cross between Taiwan's naturally occurring indigenous tea tree and the Assam strain from India that the Japanese brought in the beginning of the 20th century. And the indigenous occurring tea tree in Taiwan had already been cultivated, particularly in the Sun Moon Lake area in central Taiwan, by the Qing dynasty Chinese settlers. They found that there was a naturally occurring strain and they started farming it. And naturally, the Assam strain cross-pollinated with that indigenous strain that had already been cultivated in that area. And so this type of tea, Red Jade or Tai Cha number 18, had existed long before Taiwan's Tea Research and Extension Station began studying it. Tai Cha number 18 or Red Jade was released following the 1999 earthquake here in Taiwan on September 21, the biggest earthquake we've had here in many decades. And it caused a lot of damage. A lot of farms in the central region of Taiwan were damaged, roads were closed, a lot of things went fallow, and the government subsidized the cultivation and promotion of this new large leaf type black tea that has a very distinctive flavor profile and aromatic profile specifically. Red Jade number 18 is known for its cool, kind of mentholy or minty spearmint, and also kind of a warming spice. I was just reminded of five spice. Sometimes it reminds me of cinnamon. Very aromatic, herbal, combination of cooling and warming spices in the aromatic profile of Red Jade. I can still get it from this cooled off teapot. So Red Jade is a large leaf type, ideal for making black tea. The Sun Moon Lake area is ideal climate for cultivating these types of tea strains. It also is able to be grown basically without any chemical pesticides or fertilizers, depending on the farmer's decision. But most of Red Jade is naturally farmed. And I don't think anybody spends money on spraying their Red Jade tea plants with pesticides because it has those genes that have developed here naturally from the indigenous tea tree. So it does well, and it knows how to fight off the pests and not be seriously compromised in its growth, which obviously is a plus for us. And so whatever happened between the Assam strain and the naturally occurring tea tree strain, it created this really distinctive aromatic and flavor profile. It has these cooling notes and very aromatic spice notes to it. The shan cha, the naturally occurring strain is referred to as shan cha or just mountain tea. It is cultivated also. It was cultivated more. It's kind of having a comeback. It's a really nice black tea as well, a large leaf type tea. People are starting to make white tea from their shan cha crops as well as their Red Jade crops. So that's a new development in recent years. These large leaf types are not ideal for making oolongs. or green tea, as far as I have heard personally. But black tea for sure, and white tea has become quite popular as well. So I brewed, first of all, I used a slightly lower than boiling temperature water, about 90 degrees. I didn't measure it, but I'm guessing it was about 90 degrees. And I used a 1 to 20 tea to water ratio. So I put 9 grams of tea leaves in this 180 milliliter teapot. And I brewed the first brew and second brew at 45 seconds, and then the third and fourth at 55 seconds. And I have the fifth brew in my pot, which I brewed for 65 seconds. Let's have a taste. Cooled down now just slightly above room temperature, a little warm. We were sold on this batch of tea pretty much upon tasting it, just like that. Our friend, who is the biggest competition player we know here in the local industry, very successful in winning top ranking awards in many different competitions, sourced this batch of tea from a Sun Moon Lake tea farmer because he wanted to enter it into that local competition. That area, it's a smaller competition in terms of numbers. The amount of people, the amount of entries is much less than the oolong tea competitions. And I guess the community there is a little more, it's tighter in trying to keep the entries to local people. Basically, other farmers associations and tea competitions are people from outside, that they're not residents of that township or whatever the parameters of the competition are, but they're able to use the local residents' names and enter batches of tea, which is what our friend does. It's a very across the board, everybody knows it, legal thing to do. But that community is just like, no, basically he couldn't find anybody to lend him their name, or actually he pays them for that registration fee. So he bought this batch of tea and then ended up not entering it into the competition, which was good for us because we got to have a share in it. He bought it from a farmer about 60 years old who planted this crop of red jade about 6 years ago, which makes it definitely in its prime. We have some photos to share of the farm. The bushes are doing very well and totally filled out. And this harvest is from the beginning of July, which is the ideal time for harvesting a crop of large leaf type tea to make black tea. Basically, summer harvest is the best crop of the year for making black tea. It has to do with the higher temperatures in the weather that produce higher concentrations of certain polyphenols in the tea. And when those polyphenols are fully oxidized, you get the fullest profile. So that's a little bit different. When you have less oxidized teas, you may not want those higher concentrations of polyphenols because it tends to produce an astringent factor in the overall flavor profile, particularly when it's not heavily or fully oxidized. So fully oxidized tea likes those higher concentrations of polyphenols, and we find this one to be a really exemplary batch of Red Jade Black Tea. When I was brewing it, the effervescence or the steam coming off the leaves as they were brewing had a very distinctive, cooling, herbal, full-on aromatic profile. And the flavor profile is matching that to an extent, but it's definitely balancing it with a sweet and smooth base. I'm not going to be able to save any of my first cup here. It's cooling combined with kind of a light brown sugar syrupy factor or character in there. I wouldn't call it caramel. It's not that thick. It's a little bit thinner, but definitely sweet and balanced, with a little bit of molasses note, but not that heavy. So I brewed, I think brewing with less, a little bit less, 1:20 ratio, and not brewing for too long allows you to really hit the mark more accurately in terms of getting a full enough brew, but maintaining or not overdoing it to cover up the complexity of the brew. That's the goal, and just trying to tweak how much tea leaves to put, how long to brew it, and the temperature, of course. Definitely a little bit lower than boiling temperature helps a lot to give you more refined flavor and aromatic notes. I feel like the second brew is a little stronger, definitely more of a Red Jade. Red Jade is Red Jade, and once you know the flavor profile that it is, you'll be able to distinguish it from other black teas quite easily, I believe. Third one. It's a strong flavor profile. Even though I was careful with brewing it, not overbrewing it, it's really just like full on. Like my mouth is, it's getting a little bit tart, kind of tangy, some sort of fruity tart factor in there. What kind of fruit would that be? Maybe a plum, a slightly underripe plum. It's got enough sweetness. There is a little bit of astringency, but it's very well balanced with a nice, thick, syrupy kind of base to it. It's really, the flavor is full on. I really feel like this is the best, it's the most exemplary standard, like competition grade Red Jade that I've had in years. The fourth brew was slightly mellower. This was like the peak, I think. These leaves were picked at their ideal maturity as well. Still noticeably immature. We have a couple of photos from the farmer that he just took a photo of some picked leaves. That's what farmers do here, especially for black tea. Well, all teas actually. They'll show you the maturity of the condition of the leaves when they're picked, which is very important, basically, in producing the ideal batch of tea. And these are all very small, not much stem material, hand-picked. It was a very small crop, about 60 kilos for the whole seasonal harvest. Really nice leaf material from these 6-year-old plants, pretty much the best you can get. The dried leaves are very uniform in color and size. There's not a lot of any variation. I have some of the leaves, when the stems get torn apart, they reveal a lighter colored like tan hue, but that's just because it's fiber in the stem that it doesn't really change like the leaf material will. So there we have it. Tai Cha Shiba Hao, as they call it here. Red Jade number 18, or Thai tea number 18. It's a made in Taiwan strain of tea, the pride of Taiwan in that respect, being the descendant of Taiwan's indigenous tea tree crossed with the Assam strain. If you like this tea, this is going to be a real pleasure for you. If you don't know it yet, you're going to have a nice surprise in terms of a whole new flavor profile. It really makes amazing cold brew tea and also iced tea, because the flavor profile is so distinctive and strong. It just comes through in a much lighter brewed form, like cold brew, or if you brew it and then ice it, it gets diluted, but you'll still have plenty of flavor. Last thing I want to do is taste the combination of brews 1 through 4. So many times, that combo of what I just tasted, I got goosebumps, is where it's at. It's just got everything all combined. It's also warmer. This is significantly warmer, so I'm getting a bit more of the freshly brewed tea. That's delicious. And it really would. I mean, you could do like cocktails with that, mix it with other things. This has a lot to offer in terms of how you play with it for different types of beverages. I'm going to go ahead and taste the fifth brew, brewed for 65 seconds. Yeah, it doesn't help to brew that long. I should have just kept it at 55. It's totally palatable, but it just becomes something else. And there is a dry finish. It's a little bit astringent at the end. So keep it a little bit lower temperature, a lighter tea to water ratio, and short intervals, and it'll probably brew for a long time. There we have it. Red Jade, number 18, black tea from Taiwan, batch 84. We're just finishing up our 7th year of the Eco Cha Tea Club. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time.